And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A Bookish Moment. I'm Sarah Burr.
And I'm JC Kenny. And Sarah, we have a real rock star of an author here joining us today. So I think it's time to get bookish.
I couldn't agree more. We are joined by the wonderful Libby Klein, who is coming to us to celebrate the release of a brand new book, brand new series, which is super exciting. We're going to dive into talking about vice and virtue shortly. But before we do, I just want to say hello to our wonderful audience members who are joining us here, both live and if you're watching this after the fact. We appreciate you guys being here. We've got Mizan in the chat saying hello, everyone, and Farmhouse Reader saying hello. Mizan is already in with the congratulations on a new release, Libby. I told you that our chat is very, very warm and welcoming. Yeah. We've got DHB saying good afternoon. Thank you guys for being here. Without further ado, Libby, if you could just kind of introduce yourself to folks who may not be familiar with you and your work, to tell us a little bit about your writing background, what you were doing before writing and what brought you into cozy mysteries and mysteries in general.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here with both of you. I haven't been writing that long, really. I grew up in Cape May, which is where the Poppy McAllister mysteries are set. That's my other series. I live in Northern Virginia, which is where the Layla Virtue mysteries are set. Although I gave Layla a made-up town, so I can't get anything wrong. So always answering questions about Cape May where people were saying, is that really like that still, or that's not there anymore? And I'm like, no, it is. I'm there. It is there. But like anything I possibly say with Layla, I have made it up with the town. So
nice.
I started writing just stories that were in my head that would keep me up at night. I thought everybody had an active imagination and couldn't shake the stories. And I've come to find out that's just writers. Writers have stories playing in their heads at night or during the day when they should be working, and they can't shake them until they write them down. And the very first thing I've ever written was my first Poppy McAllister mystery, Class Reunions or Murder. So
impressive.
Very, very lucky that I've gotten published because I don't have a long line of writing for journalism or nonfiction like so many other great mystery authors do.
Wow.
Well, I tell you what, Libby, that just shows how talent and hard work play into it, because your Poppy stories are fantastic. Layla's debut is fantastic. You're fantastic. We both love you. Could you tell us a little bit about, without folks, we're just going to let you know up front that we are going to work very hard to avoid any and all spoilers about Vice and Virtue. So if you're left wondering what's really going to go on in the book, that means you got to go out and buy it or get it from the library and read it. So having said my disclaimer there, can you tell us a little bit about Vice and Virtue, Libby? Why because it's a little bit of a departure from your Poppy stories. Kind of what brings this about and kind of what's going on in the book.
Sure. So this is Vice and Virtue.
Beautiful
cover. It's the very first in a series. It's going to be at least 3 books about Layla Virtue. One of the things that's a major difference, if you've read the Poppy McAllister mysteries, you know that Poppy's a cozy mystery series. Layla's not. Layla's a women's fiction. It's a women's fiction mystery. And that means nothing to you as a reader, except that bookstores and libraries know where to put it on the shelf. And what makes it not a cozy mystery is that it's got a lot of deeper issues. Some of them are very serious issues. And Layla is technically not an amateur sleuth. I cannot tell you any more about that. So that's something that sort of separates it. But if what you like about cozy mysteries is that they're fun and funny and there's no sex or language on the page, that is still going to be Vice and Virtue because that is Libby. Libby is not going to put language in a book. I'm not going to put sex or extreme violence or anything gory or super gross in a book because that's just me. I'm just not going to write that. So if that's what draws you to cozies, even though this is not a cozy, you would still love it. Layla is in her late 30s, trying to reinvent herself, trying to go and launch her fallback career as a rock star about 20 years too late. So she's competing against kids who still live at home with their mom in the basement, and they've got a garage band and they'll play for tacos, while Layla is trying to get enough money to pay lot fees on her trailer park so that she's not kicked out. So she's kind of hit rock bottom, and the reason for being so cagey about what we will tell you is because the book was written with everything as a surprise reveal. So when we open, you know that Layla plays electric guitar, and you can kind of tell that she's not exactly on a star stage. She's playing at a sort of divey-ish lounge for an anniversary party. And you kind of get the feeling that she's not super comfortable around kids, and she makes some bad decisions.
Not super comfortable. That's putting it mildly.
That, it's funny. That was one of the things that my editor at Kensington liked the most when I told him she does not like kids. He laughed. He said, I love that. Look, kids aren't for everyone. I have 4 of them. They're not for me. I'm just saying.
I have to say that I was listening to this. I'm listening to it on audiobook, and this opening scene where we have Layla interacting with a child at this party. I was like, I have never felt so seen in my entire life reading a mystery, because, we typically have a sleuth who is kind of warm and bubbly and friendly and like people that naturally gravitate toward her. Layla has this ability to have people naturally gravitate toward her, but she's not exactly thrilled by that. She, the interactions that she has really kind of set the stage for me as the reader of like, wow, like we've got somebody who has some skeletons in their closet, has things that like I'm excited to learn more about. So I'm very, very curious, Libby, when you were first, when you first like came up with this idea, did Layla come to you kind of fully formed, like ready to go? Or was it something that was just like, what if I had this character who wanted to be a rock star in her late 30s? Like, how did this new series come to life in your mind?
Well, I was very happily writing the Poppy McAllister mysteries. I feel like I know Poppy. I know Poppy's world. I grew up there, and so many people that I know are sort of play little parts of the mysteries. So to write something completely different, I was definitely overwhelmed. To genre jump into women's fiction, it wasn't my idea. It was my publisher's idea. Overwhelmed. I immediately realized I did not know what I was doing. I just really was overthinking it. I'm analytical and I'm an overthinker. So if you tell me something, the wheels are going to be turning until they completely spin out. So when I birthed Layla, if you will, she's sort of another side of me. But she also has a lot of history with my family members who have had addictions. And Layla's a musician. My father was a musician. So there's a lot of that world that I'm familiar with. But Layla has a lot of issues. She has issues with people. Where Poppy's issues are with herself, Layla's issues are with everybody else. She knows she has addiction issues, but she has issues with children. She has issues with women. She's been burned a lot in the past in her relationships, and she's not especially excited about moving forward with new people. She's kind of happy to be alone. Layla thinks being alone is safe, it's comfortable, there's nobody to judge you, there's nobody to hurt you, and that's how she's trying to live her life. And she is just immersed in a world between the neighborhood where she lives, the people that she meets at AA, the people that she meets at the bar. Suddenly, she's got this group of people trying to draw her into each of their worlds to become a part and to be friends and to connect and have a relationship. And she's just trying her best to shut everyone down. She just wants to be alone. Layla is very funny. She's very sarcastic, but where Poppy usually has an inner monologue of things that Poppy thinks, Layla will just flat out say it. She's not worried about hurting people's feelings. She's not mean. She's not harsh, but she doesn't have a filter. She doesn't have the relationship background of being around friends and being comfortable with people and comfortable with herself to have developed a filter. So she will just say things.
That is, yeah.
That's a lot of fun, and kind of along that line of saying things, talking about choices. One of the things I'm curious about, and there are a couple lines early in the book. Layla has chosen as in her bid to be a rock star, she's into classic rock. And I'm of that age, that's totally in my wheelhouse. Obviously, Layla, some of the people she's performing for would like something more current, which doesn't quite work out. Why did you choose? Is there a reason why you chose for Layla to be a classic rock performer as opposed to, say, playing pop tunes or whatever?
It's funny, I grew up listening to 70s music, which at the time was just called rock. And then 80s as a teenager, all through the 80s. So that was our rock.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't realize at the time it was really kind of weird music. At the time, we thought this is awesome. Looking back now, having several decades beyond the 80s, we're like, God, the 80s were weird, weren't they? Now, not only is the 70s and the 80s called classic rock, but the 90s are called classic rock. And that cuts me a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh. The first time I ever heard Stairway to Heaven as elevator music, I died a little.
Oh, yeah.
And then Rock You Like a Hurricane playing to sell fiber crackers. I was like, oh God, what's happening? So the reason that Layla, she has a love of classic rock is because that's what I grew up on. But also it ties into how she grew up and where in her life things changed to where music was not a part of her life. So she knows 90s music, but that's mostly because of her age. I had several people tell me who are her age that they knew a lot of 90s stuff, but they didn't know anything beyond that. Because when life changes, in my case, when I got a family, you're not listening and clubbing and going out to bands and stuff quite as much when you start a family. So that's kind of when your music, decade takes a halt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Layla's took a halt professionally, where suddenly, she's all about music all the time, and then it takes a halt where it's like her life is in a different place, and so she's not getting all of that new music. So she doesn't know anything beyond the 90s, and you'll have to find out why, but there's definitely a reason why her music life took a halt at that point.
Okay.
I love all of these, they're so, everything that you've put into this book is so, you talk about, yourself, Libby, where you overthink things. And it's but everything in this book is so well thought out. And it's so the reveals and, the clues that you're putting in are just it's masterful the way that you present it. So it is amazing. So again, thank you for writing something so wonderful. I want to direct really quickly to our chat. We've got some folks chiming in. Regina Williams joining us with a hello, everyone. Mizan says that she's already intrigued. Mary Seifert says hello. And Mizan said, I just put a hold on this in my library in both audiobook and ebook. I'll take whichever comes first. So Mizan is ready to go. And then we have DHB saying classic rock of the 60s and 70s is it. So, we're all... and then a follow-up of Mozart probably thought the same thing. So, but we've got music is something that we all can identify with in some shape or form because, regardless of what music we love, everybody has something that speaks to them. And one thing that I think is really cool is that on your website, you actually have a playlist that Layla listens to. And I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about how you curated that. What was that something that kind of came to life as you were writing and you were listening to that music while writing Layla's story? Or is it something that, kind of you set aside and it's if Layla were to create her playlist, here it would be?
So that is the Vice and Virtue playlist. That is every song that Layla plays throughout the book.
Nice.
Nice.
That's why some of those songs are terrible, right? Like nobody wants to listen to the bunny hop, or there's another one she plays, like the cake music. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but it's like if you've ever been to a cheesy wedding or like not a good bar mitzvah, but like a cheesy bar mitzvah or a cheesy party, there's music that plays out like the alley cat dun 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 dun. Nobody wants to listen to that on a daily basis, but she has to play it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But that's all the songs that she gets stuck playing.
Oh, that's
Songs that
fun.
she plays on her own that
Hmm.
like when she's at like an open mic, this is what she wanted to play. This is what she knew. And there's a few little songs in there that make a point in the book. They show up in the book,
Hmm.
circumstances. So that's actually the playlist to go with the book.
Oh,
Every song on that playlist is mentioned in the book.
nice.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
folks, if
So
you're
there you go,
interested in
folks.
that,
Talking about, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
if you're interested in listening, it's on Libby's website, which we have linked in our show notes. And there's like a big like Layla's playlist is right there. That's a really cool like companion item that you've created for readers.
Yeah, that is bonus content turned up to 11.
And most of the songs just sort of came out of my heart,
Hmm.
like from knowing the music, from not only knowing the cheesy stuff that you have to play at some of these venues. In the 70s, if you went to a wedding, that reception was going to play the bunny hop.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
In the 80s, it was going to play the electric slide, but in the
Mhm.
70s, everybody had to do the bunny hop. So between that and the music that was near and dear to Layla's heart, and even mention some of the stuff on the playlist is not what other people played,
Hmm.
but even the stuff that other people played when she goes to open mic night, I think they all want to play the same song. So it's like you just have band after band after band playing the exact same song that they knew from the 90s. Uh, so I mean, it was something that I didn't have to research or look up. Geez, what should she play? These were all songs that I knew.
Hmm.
I found a couple new ones along the way that I really liked. There's the opening song to the playlist I had never heard before, but that is totally tells you where Layla is in her life. That tells you Layla's personality and how she's stuck and what she's afraid of. So the opening song is very thematic.
Gotcha. Oh,
I
that's so
also think
cool.
I tend to write like I'm writing a movie. I hear music, and there's a lot of music in my other series too. Songs are constantly mentioned in my Poppy series. And that's because that's a constant commentary of music running in my head. That's just how I am, because that's music is such a big part of my life.
Hmm.
When I tell you I listen to it all day long, I mean all day and all night. The whole time I was a small child, that radio was playing 70s music all night long as we went to sleep, as we woke up, did homework to music, went to school listening to music. We used to have the Walkman. That dates me a little bit. Like we actually had to put it on. Like things did not go in your ears in the 80s.
Mhm.
You had to tiny little headphone. But, and then as a teenager, I even had a class in school. I think it was junior high. The smartest math teacher in the world would teach a 5-10 minute lesson, and we would sit very patiently and wait. And now it's time for us to do the seat work, and he would let us play whatever music we wanted. And I heard that Journey Escape album
Oh,
every
God.
for a year. We
Ugh.
would sit there and do our music and listen to Escape and Separate Ways. And so it's like he was smart because that was the only class where like nobody acted up because you're all just into the music, doing the
Mhm.
math. So it's a big part of my life.
Sarah, I feel bad for you because, Libby and I lived the 80s,
Yeah.
and to be able to say you lived the 80s, sorry you missed it, yeah, yeah. Even though, yes, speaking of Journey, there is a lot of Journey music I cannot stand to listen to these days because I heard it about 5 billion times back the first time around. But I digress. Enough about me. Libby, one of the things, to Sarah's point earlier, is that you write such wonderful plot-filled stories with so many twists and turns. So, we've got about 10 minutes left. Can you talk a little bit about your writing process? Are you the plotter? Are you the pantser making stuff on the fly? How do you put your stories together?
I'm definitely a hybrid. I'm a plotter, but that outline doesn't write itself. You pants your way through it, right? So, I mean, I'll spend days thinking and planning. I might work on my characters. I might work on my motive, my crime scene. I often, even in my other series, there's so much more going on than a cozy mystery. There's like five plots in every
Okay.
book, and it's not an intention. I've got to have five. Somehow that's just the way my mind works, I guess. So I always have a long goal for, like, say, the romance plot, or what's going to happen with these characters, the side characters, what will happen with them in this book. There's always an overarching theme. There's an overarching story in Vice and Virtue. There's the story for today of Layla's issues. There's a murder mystery that Layla gets caught up in, but there's also an overarching mystery that will go through the entire first trilogy. So I think about all of this and I plan it. And since I know things I want to put in book three, I often will hide little kernels of them in book
Oh, I
one.
love it.
Wow, that's
So if you
cool.
read it backwards, you'll find Easter eggs in all of my books where things are planted once I know where I'm going.
I
Um,
love a good Easter egg.
and of course, I totally outline so that when I go to write, I can work from an outline and sort of fill in. My outline is right now 12,000 words long.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
almost like pantsing the novel over and over and over and layering until I have a 12,000 word outline. But then from that point, after that 12,000 words, that's what I work off of. You pants your way through
Mhm.
every scene.
Hmm.
Everything that happens, most of the funny stuff in all of my books was not outlined. It's rarely that I outline anything, a joke. I might say Figaro does something funny here, or Layla has a terrible gig. So that might be the only thing on the outline. But then what I fill in is totally pantsed. I do try to write a chapter a day, as long as it's like I write short, quick chapters.
Hmm.
As long as it's a 1,500 word chapter, I can do one a day. If it's a long chapter, it's going to take me more. And every day, other than the first day, I start by reading what I wrote yesterday.
Mm,
And it gets me right back into it. And I
nice.
start reading that and editing. So every chapter is edited a bajillion times because I always start by reading and editing.
I like that bajillion. That is a good. That's
Yes.
what I like for authors. Like, yes, we do these things like so many times, and yet like we're always finding something new that we're like, oh, like maybe I should tweak this a little bit.
Hmm.
So I have a question, Libby. You had mentioned that when your publisher first kind of approached you with this idea of writing a women's fiction mystery, you said that you felt overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to do it? Now that you've done it and you've knocked it out of the park, what was something that you learned along the way that you're like, okay, like this is suddenly less scary than I thought it would be?
Well, part of me being overwhelmed was because when he said he wanted me to start writing women's fiction, I said, what is that? Isn't all fiction women's fiction? Like,
Hmm.
what are they reading separate? I don't understand the question. So I really got in my head about what this was supposed to be, and my concept of women's fiction is Virgin River, which is very deeply emo, and I am not. I am very deeply sarcastic. So those two things don't go together. But what women's fiction is the main character is on an emotional journey. Whatever, when the book opens, it might be they've had a loss in their life or someone's passed away. It could be a new town, they've lost their job, they've had a relationship breakup. Whatever is happening, maybe they themselves have some kind of an illness that they've been diagnosed with. So they're on an emotional journey. Throughout the course of the story, you will follow their emotional journey. And at the end of the book, they should be in a different place emotionally than when they started. That takes center stage. In a cozy mystery, the center stage is a murder mystery.
Mm,
In a women's fiction, the center stage is that emotional journey. The murder mystery is a side plot. That's
that's
something I
interesting.
really hope the readers of my Poppy series can sort of go along with me. Go along with me because the very first time I read a women's fiction mystery, I was a little irritated. Why is nobody trying to solve who killed this guy? But it's sort of a format.
Mm-hmm.
This is how these books are formed. A romance novel, a true romance novel, has to have a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's hybrids of like happy for now, but in a women's fiction romance, they don't have to stay together. They could totally break up by the end. Women's fiction is about the emotional journey and it has different conventions from the other genres. So that right there was a little bit tricky. But at the end of the day, my Poppy series is like right on the edge of being a women's fiction anyways, because
Mm-hmm.
Poppy's also on an emotional journey. The difference is she talks to the suspects more and to the women less than in a women's fiction, you just swap it. So
Gotcha.
that's why Layla, her main issue is, other than she's in recovery, which more is about who she is as a person than her issue in the book. It's not an AA book. It's not a book about being an alcoholic. She just is an alcoholic. It's just that's who she is. It's about a woman who doesn't have good relationships, who does not like other women and has lived with the stigma of different aspects of her past to where it prevents her from moving on. And she has to encounter these women and decide what she's going to do with them. That's what it's really about. The fact that there's a dead body and that she ends up working on this murder is completely a side plot. But she's got so many other things going for her in the book. She's got a mysterious dad who's shown up and she's like trying to hide him. She's got a black lab that's shown up out of nowhere and just somehow keeps finding his way into her house. And she's like, do you not know where you live? So there's many other things. She lives in a neighborhood of people who are like, she thinks they're all insane. They'll come around and they'll measure her grass to see how long it is,
Oh,
to give
geez.
her a homemade ticket if it's too long. The neighbor behind her has a rooster she denies exists. So there's a lot of really funny elements for a book that also deals with some pretty heavy issues
Mm-hmm.
like alcohol abuse.
And that's, I think that, we call it women's fiction, but it's just like life, like people moving through life and, encountering these challenges and figuring out a way to either deal with them, move past them, succumb to them, what have you. But that's a really like fascinating, like approach that you've taken, Libby. So thank you so much for like enlightening us with what that is. Cause I've wondered that myself. It's like, is it women's fiction because it's written by a woman? What does that mean? So that was a masterclass in teaching me about genre. And in our remaining time together you have mentioned that you've had like all of these great music influences throughout your life, Libby. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe like some of your favorite like songs, albums with our audience members, as well as maybe just a peek either into what you're listening to, reading, watching, going to the movies, seeing, any type of media that you're consuming. We love getting recommendations from our guests that join us.
Well, back before we started working at home pretty much solely, we had Sirius XM and we would do a lot of driving, and there was only one group that could come on that no one was allowed to veto. And I apologize, Jim, but nobody in my car turns off Journey.
Okay, that's
Journey
fair.
is my favorite. However, I'm going to tell you something that I've never told other people, like publicly, like on the internet, that is not popular. I do not love a lot of very popular, like, you're talking big names. I'm not a fan of Elvis, the Beatles, the Beach Boys. I mean, don't take away my music's cred, but these are just not my favorite groups. The Beatles, half of it I love, half of it I'm like, oh God, did they just run out of ideas? So I love my 80s rock. You can recognize 80s rock instantly because the minute you hear a synthesizer, you know this is the 80s. There's actually one thing I heard in the audiobook. I'm listening to the audiobook now and I love it, and she's doing a wonderful job.
She does a wonderful job.
I'm not entirely sure that she knows what a keytar is because I think she thought it was a typo when she said guitar, and I was like, no, it's keytar. A keytar is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
yeah.
the Neon Dreams, like, he's playing a keytar, and I think she tried to fix it for me, and I was like, okay, she's young. She's probably young. So, so I do love my 70s and 80s music. I definitely have never been into country music, but that's because I didn't grow up with it. I grew up listening to what we now call classic rock. Love my arena rock, my my Scorpions and my Van Halen. I mean, big fan of any arena rock where there's a it's instantly recognizable for those of us from the generation. They got the big hair
Hmm.
and the higher voices than you think should be able to come out of a man. So it's just amazing. So those are my favorites. As far as reading, I do a lot of reading for other authors. I do a lot of reading for the purpose of critiquing and beta reading and blurbing, and that's all I've been doing. Um, I haven't read anything without an assignment in months.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
So as far as TV, one of my favorite shows I have just found is The Rookie. It's a
That's
Oh.
cop
fun.
show.
Hmm.
And it is, I remember hearing it's one of the most realistic, accurate portrayals of what it's like to be a police officer. But I also, oh my God, mind blown, love Severance and
Okay.
Silo.
Oh,
Now,
I've heard good
Severance,
things about Silo.
Silo is fantastic,
Hmm.
especially your first season. Not because it's not as good in the second season, but because, anything that's going to have some big bombshell reveal, you're never going to be able to sort of match that moment again. So Silo is one of those. Whereas Severance, we saw Severance when it first came out 3 years ago and could not wait for it to have a season two. And then we had to rewatch it all over again. Severance is another one. There's a lot of bombshell reveals in Severance. So those are some things that I can't speak to if there's anything in them that's offensive to anybody because I don't remember because it's gone instantly with me. Like there's no short-term memory here. I see it, boom, it's gone. But I remember plot lines
Hmm.
and I remember big things that happen, I remember storytelling. I don't remember like the little things. So, but those are all things I would recommend.
Those, well, I've written them down on my little notebook here. We've got folks in the chat, Mizan saying that she has recorded The Rookie but hasn't yet watched it, so it's good to know that you recommend it, Libby. DHB saying Queen, Boston, Traffic, Meatloaf, Zappa, to name a few of their favorite bands from the classic rock times. JC, really quickly, any recommendations for folks this week?
Yeah, just real quick, just started watching the new season of Brokenwood Mysteries. Episode 1 actually features an 80s new wave band trying to make a comeback,
Ooh.
and somebody ends up dead. So that was a lot of fun. Ties perfectly into the show this afternoon. How about you, Sarah?
Well, my folks on social media know that I have just been obsessed with the new season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. It is pure like garbage for your head and eyes and ears, but man, it's been very enjoyable. So if you're into reality TV, give it a try because it's insane. So so we've got some great recommendations to take away. We've got an amazing book in Vice and Virtue to all rush out, add to our to be read list, to add to our shopping carts, to add to our library carts, all of that good stuff. Libby, where can folks stay connected with you for newsletter updates, any Facebook groups that you're a part of? How can folks stay in touch?
Probably the best way is my newsletter because it's the only thing I can control. So if you go to my website, the first thing that pops up is, would you like to sign up for the newsletter? I'll tell you this, anybody who has ever sent me any email about anything, you are not signed up for my newsletter unless you sign yourself up. I don't do that. Because that happens to me constantly where you email somebody and next thing you know, you're getting a newsletter. So that's where you're going to find out where I'm going to be. Also, Facebook. I have accounts on Facebook and I'm in the Cozy Mystery Crew, which is a fantastic group with
Nice.
wonderful authors and wonderful alumni, both of whom I'm speaking to right now.
Aw.
That is where I'm going to put things happening. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be in Alexandria at One More Page Books with a bunch of talented authors doing a noir at the bookstore. I'll be at the Cape May Chocolate and Coffee Festival. Oh my God, why didn't I not know that happened? Somebody had to tell me about it.
Wow.
I'm like, that's a
Nice.
thing. In fact, the Cape May Chocolate and Coffee Festival takes place in Convention Hall, and I literally kill somebody in a book in that very building. So I'm wondering, like, do I tell them that while I'm here? I killed somebody in this room, like in this book right here.
That would be quite the conversation starter.
Yeah. And then I know I'll be at BoucherCon, and I've got
Mhm.
lots of little events, but it's hard to keep track. Oh, and after I'm going to be in Cape May in the middle of June, I'm going to be at both Bethany Beach Books and Rehoboth Browse About Books. It's like a whole weekend.
So lots of opportunities to stay in touch and stay connected. And also a quick shout out, because I believe a lot of your books are a part of it, Libby, but the summer reading program in the Cozy Mystery Crew just kicked off on Sunday. And you have been leading the charge and the helm and getting us all situated. Do you want to do a little like blurb about what goes on for the summer reading program?
So first you'd need to join the Cozy Mystery Crew on Facebook, which is 12 talented authors. Sarah is one of the authors. Jim has sadly left us for bigger and better, and we miss him terribly. But you get to interact with us every day. A different one of us is going to be talking about what's going on in our lives and whatever nonsense we can think of. And right now, we're doing a summer reading program where every week you're going to get a list of books. Some weeks it's going to be a short list. Some weeks, like Christmas, I think in July, is a big list. But you have the opportunity, you need to read one book on the list, and then you leave a review somewhere on social media, the social media of your choice. It can be Facebook, it can be Vines, we don't care where you put it. And you're going to be entered to win lots of things. We've got getting your name put in a book. And there's a lovely tote bag that's got all of our names on it. And there's a whole bunch of little swaggy things that you're going to get. So we like to reward our readers and our followers with whatever fun game we can. And Cozy Mystery readers will read a book a day. It's very impressive. Like, I'm not able to do that, but it's very impressive. So lots and lots of books to read. Every week is going to be a new list of books, and they only have to read one a week. So lots of things that you can win, plus all the fun, amazing books, and you get introduced to new authors that maybe you weren't familiar with.
Yay, that was
All right, there
a
you have it,
fabulous,
folks.
it's going to be a
Cozy
fabulous,
Mystery
yeah.
Crew.
So as we come to the end of our moment together, Libby, thank you so much for being here. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule to come and share, how Layla came to be and all of the fun and interesting characters that folks will meet in Vice and Virtue. So thank you again for taking the time to be with us. Thank you to our wonderful viewers who joined us this afternoon, both live and after the fact. We very much appreciate your comments, your questions. We love being bookish with you guys. If you are watching after the fact and do have a question or comment, feel free to put it on the video and we will make sure to respond. We do have another show this week at 4:30 on Thursday. We're going to be joined by Phyllis Goebel talking about her new book, and lots of more opportunities before our season wraps very soon in the end of June. So again, thank you to everyone watching. Thank you, Libby, for being here. Congratulations again on the release of Vice and Virtue, which is available wherever you buy your books and on audiobook. So everyone, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And until we see each other again, stay bookish, everybody. Bye-bye.